Well, good evening, my family. I would like to first give a nice thanks to my brother Travis Pope for allowing me to speak tonight and hopefully give you some good information on how to both search and land a job with the Lord. So we'll be starting off in Proverbs chapter 8, verse 22. Mm-hmm. All right. All right. And the scripture reads, "The Lord brought me forth as the first of his works. Before his deeds of old, I was formed long ages ago, at the very beginning when the world came to be." So I think it's necessary to really work with God. We have to kind of know how God worked. And at the very beginning, God worked with wisdom. Before there was any land formed, there was wisdom, the first of his works. And so just as he began things with wisdom, so should we begin our search before we work with wisdom. And so that's why the first point that I have is the land before time. And that land is wisdom, right? And so to be wise in your job search, you should, first of all, know your strengths. So you can cut and save time and distractions looking at job titles that don't fit your job strengths, right? Or they don't match your previous work history. So first off, you need to know your own strengths. And if you know, like I know, we don't actually have any strengths of our own. Our strength is the Lord. And so as such, we need to know that everything that the Lord possesses, so long as we possess him, we have all of the strength in the world and in the entire universe. So first know that your strength is the Lord. And then move on with that and knowing that the Lord is the father of instruction. He's the master of instruction, which lets us know that he is meant to be followed, right? So if the Lord is not setting forth the path, you must look for the Lord in everything, right? Because he's given wisdom. And if wisdom isn't everything, then wisdom is the language of creation, right? And so if you're doing something, right, and it's like my efforts, it's not working off, it's not paying off, it just doesn't make sense, then I stand before you to say that, hey, you might be lacking a little wisdom and a little instruction, right? So what can we do? There's plenty of tips out there, right? There's plenty of websites to search from, Indeed, Glassdoor. There's, the list goes on and on. But as you're searching, they have within the website tips for getting an interview, tips for even finding a job that suits kind of your needs, right? Because sometimes, I don't know if this is the trouble I kind of have for tonight. We're all in different places. We're all looking from different perspectives. And maybe you're looking to get a 6-figure job, or maybe you're just trying to figure out 6 different jobs. I don't know. But the whole point of this is focusing on the general things that we each need, right? Because there's so many different fields out there that need plowing, and the Lord has the tools for every single one of them, right? So with knowing that wisdom is in everything, it's always necessary to be seasoned with. So that's why we're going to go over to Ecclesiastes, and we're going to look at a little bit more wisdom so we can all be well seasoned. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. Oh. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Don't mind me. All righty. And the scripture reads, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. So for some of us, we're starting off maybe jobless, looking for a job, coming from college, or maybe possibly being laid off or quitting. The reasons that we need a job may be many, but it stands that every season doesn't have to be the same. Just because you have a job and hey, it's making ends meet, it doesn't mean that you're always meant to stay. You need to know when to go, right? And because of that, it's good practice to interview roughly every 6 months to just with other companies just to know what your value is, right? Because sometimes you're not able to kind of gauge where you're at the same company that you've been doing the same things with for God knows how long. And so you need to step out to kind of really get a full view of exactly how much you are worth to that company so you can leverage a raise possibly, or you can just possibly start afresh elsewhere, right? And know that you are making as much as you can, not just for yourself, but as we said, for the Lord, right? And sometimes you don't have a job at all, right? And if that is your situation, you should make a goal with how many resumes and how many applications that you put in a day. You should have different resumes for different skill traits that you do have. Right? If you're putting in the same resume for every job and that those jobs aren't in the same field, chances are you might not get a hit back, right? Because there's certain keywords our sister Cass is going to go over, but there's plenty of keywords that they're looking for. And it's like with AI kind of running the show these days, you really have to be on your P's and Q's with that, right? And as we know, Proverbs tells us that our wisdom is like precious jewels, right? Stones, if you will, right? And we know that stones, they usually are set in settings, right? And that settings is our faith. So if you're doing these things, you're making your resume, you're putting down these strengths, do so knowing that God has your back through it all. And if you don't have the knowledge of that, we have a great book that's full of it. I could spend all day telling you that all of God's promises and listing out all the ways that He has strengthened us and stands to strengthen us through it all. But as I was saying, they're like stones, right? Now, some stones you can skip, some stones you can cast. Right, the Lord tells us to cast some stones, but you know what I'm saying. But in some stones you step on. So the wise thing to do is know what positioning you are in, what season you're in, so that you know whether to skip, step, or cast the stone. Right, but we're not casting stones with maliciousness, which leads me to my second point: no malice in Wonderland. Right, and we're going to turn over to Proverbs chapter 3 for that. All right. Thanks, okay. One thing about wisdom is like you have to have a purpose, right? And so it's like you have to have a purpose behind your plan and plan to have a purpose, right? And in order to do that, you have to know your audience. Yeah. And so in Proverbs chapter 3, starting in verse 3. Come on, let's go. It reads, "Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man." Now, in the NASB, it says kindness instead of love and faithfulness. It says allow kindness and faithfulness. So if you want to land a good job, you need to be kind, as kind as you are faithful. And it says that you will win the favor of both God and man, right? And if it's good enough for God, it's good enough for man, right? So a lot of people are worried about, I don't have the charisma, I don't have the charm, the looks, the this, the that, the clothes, the shoes, the car. It's not about those things. It's about godly characteristics like kindness and truth and grace, right? And if you can wield those things, it doesn't matter who you're standing before, it's pleasing, right? And so you have to say goodbye to Mr. Nice Guy. No more Mr. Nice Guy, right? In Proverbs 25, it kind of talks about flattery. You know, a lot of times we show up looking for a job, or we're trying to flatter our way through, and it's Proverbs tells us that flattery is like a net, right? That you're gonna get tangled up in, right? So be genuine when you show up. Be genuine. You have to, everywhere you go, whenever you interview, it's an interview. Whenever someone can see you, it's an interview, right? So you have to keep that in mind and allow yourself to be a light, to be truthful, to be kind, to be loving, and to be graceful in all situations, because you never know when you can be offered a job. Right? I've shared my faith with people, and it's like, I've been offered a job. They asked me if I wanted to work. I was at Chick-fil-A, but I was like, hey, like, I appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? You put your trust in the Lord and you allow God to lead the way, and you will find circumstances that, are favorable, not just to you, but to the world, because that's one more light shining in the workplace. The point 3 is never land, right? You have to never land. You have to never forget that the point of you getting the job is to honor and glorify God, right? It's not for just us to have more groceries, even though more food is nice. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's the point of it isn't to just allow your hand and your life to be more comfortable, but it's to serve the kingdom more, to make friends with your wealth, to change lives, and to glorify God. And to God be all the glory.